Later on. Thank you.
See you later.
17 minutes past 7 is the time. Andrew Tate, social media influencer who has been recently detained in Romania as part of a human trafficking and rape investigation, has made an impact on some young boys in schools with his controversial views.
Now, some teachers are having conversations about him in lessons in a bid to understand and maybe demystify his appeal. Our special correspondent, Lucy Manning, has been finding out more.
Andrew Tate is in a Romanian jail, but he still sits in the minds of British teenagers.
So why is it that Andrew Tate has had so much impact?
At St Dunstan's College, they don't ignore the problem.
If I were to tell you that there are ways of making money which are...
The online influencer had millions of followers, but views he admits are misogynistic. He's been arrested as part of a rape and human trafficking investigation. Allegations he denies.
What is it about his videos that give the perception of them being so popular?
Because at first, seemingly, his most videos are like, he might have like a funny joke at the beginning, but as you watch more and more of his videos, his radical views develop and it kind of like seeps into your mind.
Another reason it's so successful is because it's controversial. So it will like invoke a reaction and make people angry, which will then make them more likely to like talk about it.
Someone who like dresses really well, has lots of money, lots of cars, and he like brings that into his videos a lot, and he kind of like connects that with his views.
If they see loads of views, it's something that they're going to click on because they want to like be with the crowd.
Do you just want to raise your hands if you were aware of Andrew Tate before all this happened? So you're all aware, most of you, almost everyone in the class, OK.
Even those who have reported them as offensive can't escape them.
With Andrew Tate videos, I got one of him and I put, it's supposed to make me uncomfortable, like I don't want to see it again, I'm not interested. And I still get them, like I got one like yesterday.
The way he objectifies and dehumanises women and things just really bad in general.
Do you think more should have been done, or it's OK for people to watch him if they want to watch him?
Considering like TikTok's platform where it says that like misogyny and hateful things will be taken off, and they didn't do that, considering that I don't think they like stepped up to what they said they would do, so it's kind of harmful towards others too.
Some people would say that you just need to ignore the views of Andrew Tate.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely hear that, but the reality is that these young, vulnerable teenagers with growing minds are in that space and they're listening to people like Andrew Tate, and it's having a hugely negative impact on their outlook on life. And as they grow and develop and they're in this digital space that we've talked about, of course these views start to creep in.
Do you hear some of those misogynistic views amongst your pupils?
Yeah, I mean, we educate 1,200 children here, and they are all going on their own journey through life and adolescence. And of course, when they're bombarded by this kind of messaging, this imagery, then they formulate views that are misplaced. And that's why we have to enable them to have a platform to express those views.
So how to tackle the views not just of Andrew Tate, but others who have moved into the online space? The government points to proposed new laws to tighten the age restrictions on those looking at harmful content online. But it's clear tech companies, schools and parents all have a role to play.
What's acceptable, what's not acceptable.
And parents are grappling with the consequences.
It wasn't just him talking about it, it was actually taking the stance of Andrew Tate with the way Andrew Tate sits. And I said, why are you doing this? And he says, well, Dad, he goes, this guy, he's rich, he's famous, because what's not to like about him? With kids, we've always taken the approach that you set right from wrong. It's okay to express your masculinity, but don't do it in an obnoxious and sort of misogynistic way.
A conversation that many are now having. Lucy Manning, BBC News.
Now, Charlotte Carson is a teacher and founder of the Feminism in Schools Network, joins us now. Good morning to you. And we have Michael Conroy, who's the head of Men at Work, which is a charity which helps boys and young men to behave appropriately around girls and women. Good morning to you as well, Michael. Michael, let me start with you. I mean, it's quite interesting that Men at Work exists at this moment in time. What influence have you seen in terms of Andrew Tate, and how is that affecting the boys, the people you're talking to at this moment in time?
OK, yeah, great. Well, I've been doing this work for some years, after 16 years in secondary education. One of the reasons I set up Men at Work is because I could start to see the incidents that were arising sort of mapped against the rise of the handheld devices and the ubiquity of the internet. So I wanted really to focus on this and supporting teachers, youth workers, social workers, anybody who works for boys and young men, to be able to have constructive, challenging conversations with boys and young men about the influences to which they're exposed. Now, Andrew Tate is just a very recent example of this. I mean, he's a profoundly mundane character in a way. In what he says, there's nothing new at all about what he's saying. But the package, the glamour, sorry, the showbiz, the kind of glamour that's been alluded to by some of your other speakers, that appeal, how he sits his misogyny and his hatred of women within this kind of appeal of lifestyle guru. That's quite a new phenomena. And the fact that the way the internet works means that we live separate lives, even in the same houses, parents and kids. We don't really know what our kids are doing. I guess they don't know what we're doing either, because we exist in entirely separate ways online. That's the real worry, and I think the platforms have got a huge amount of accountability on that. They don't. One of the children, I think the young people who were speaking earlier, said that the platforms like TikTok, they've got policies. They don't follow them because it makes too much money. Controversy equals money. And that's a really dangerous formula. And I think it's something that society as a whole really needs to get to grips with.
Charlotte, good morning to you. I wonder if you could give us some practical insight. For a lot of people who are not at school, not of that generation, we look on from the outside and think, how does this play out in practice? What have you seen in classrooms that you see as evidence of something going on, these conversations, this mindset?
Good morning. So, I mean, I've been teaching for 15 years and I've observed in classrooms for the full 15 years that I have taught evidence of sexist behaviour and sexist attitudes and ideas amongst our young people. So this is not a new thing. And I think, you know, Michael has agreed with that Andrew Tate is the latest, you know, phenomenon in the story of, you know, sexist kind of culture and behaviour in society. And he is very appealing to young men. So, you know, so this is not new and we really must emphasise this. This has kind of given us an opportunity to raise the issue of how do we teach about sexism? How do we help our young people navigate, you know, the very harmful world of online pornography, online media, and the addictive nature of TikTok, and the fact that their parents have no idea what they're looking at. I said to 2 different groups of boys this week, you know, would you let your parents see what you're looking at on TikTok? And in chorus, they all shouted, no way, miss. And these are boys in sort of year 8, year 9, so they're 13, 14. So I also think we need to educate parents. Parents need to understand what their kids are looking at. They need to have conversations about what they're looking at, and obviously teachers also need to have those conversations too.
Charlotte, can I just ask you? I mean, you've both made very good points on this, that it's not new. Some of these thought processes are not new, but maybe what's different, Charlotte, help me with this one, is why is this landing in a different way? The way it's been packaged, if you like, and in this case, by Andrew Tate, but it could be someone else. Why do you feel like it's landing in a different way than it has?
Well, it's landed through TikTok, and it's landed through the fact that, you know, within opening a TikTok account as a 16-year-old boy, it takes 2 minutes before you're fed Andrew Tate content. And kids are spending hours and hours each day on their phones, and their parents don't know what they're looking at. They're left alone in their room. They're left alone in their spaces. They're not having conversations in real life, even with their friends, let alone their parents or their teachers. So I think, you know, we have a crisis of addiction to online platforms amongst our young people. And that's really a big part of the conversation that we need to have. And I think that schools can lead the way in teaching critical media literacy so that young people understand TikTok is not news. A boy told me the other day, Andrew Tate's not even in jail, miss, you know, because I saw it on the news. And I said, well, which news did you watch? And he kind of went a bit quiet and he went, well, TikTok. And I had to explain, right, well, that's not news. That's you know, somebody giving you some information, but that's not the same as, for example, watching BBC News. So children need to be taught in good citizenship lessons, in good PSHE lessons, led by trained PSHE teachers and trained citizenship teachers, in well-planned schemes of about critical media literacy, about sexism, about the world that we live in, about healthy relationships.
Well, we will point out as well, thanks Charlotte, we will point out, of course, he's banned from social media, many social media platforms, but as we heard in our report earlier, one girl was saying that even though she doesn't want to see these things, videos are still being sent out around in group chats as well. So this is how this is going around. Michael, when you talk to young men or boys at this moment in time, why do you think, and it's kind of an extension really to Charlie's question, why do you think there is almost a receptiveness, a willingness to kind of have these views or take on some of these views, these misogynistic views at this moment in time, an openness to this?
Sorry, I've had a bad cough for
No
weeks.
problem.
A terrible time to do interviews, but I think it's a complex answer, but some strands of it are that life is confusing, life online is confusing, and he's offering very simple answers. He's offering as snake oil salesmen often do, they're offering very simple answers to really complicated problems and feelings as well. And there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of confusion around being a teenage boy, as there is with a teenage girl as well. And if not so much if you're looking for it, but if it's looking for you, and I think that's a really important point. The way the algorithms work is you don't even need to be looking for material; it finds you. That's something a lot of people, 40, 50, 60 years old, we just can't really get our heads around it. But if you're signed up to a platform and you put your age in, it will send you what it thinks is age appropriate material, but it will be stuff that's targeted, like Andrew Tate, to maximize his ability to monetize their confusion. And it's offering simple solutions wrapped up in a package of glamour, very showbiz type package. That's fairly new. His views are not new, they're thousands of years old. We're talking about basic patriarchal misogyny, that women are property of men. That's been going for thousands of years around the world. But I think he's captured the zeitgeist and the moment in technology where young people are exposed to these, particularly young men, that's the way it's really targeted. They're exposed to these messages for prolonged periods without scrutiny because the parents, the carers, just don't live in the same space. So it's so important that parents and carers get involved, get informed, and it's not going to be easy. This is not an easy task because this is huge. The internet is a huge change in human culture, but also schools, not only schools, they're expected to do so much. And I've been in schools for years, and schools cannot fix everything. But the problems are playing out in schools. I've spoken to so many teachers in training since September when he really kind of blew up as a figure. And they're saying routinely in every training session that his name is being brought up in class. Right. Young men are kind of bringing their phones in and saying, "Miss, what do you think about this? Andrew Tate says you're wrong." And often it is miss and not sir, which is an interesting point because they are kind of challenging female teachers using Andrew Tate. And I think that tells us a story. I think fundamentally the influence of pornography is essential in this picture to understand it because 14, 15-year-old boys, 16-year-old boys have had access for years to any form of pornography. And that is a cultural and social problem, the dimensions of which we don't fully understand. But they've groomed the boys for Tate.
Michael, I'm going to interrupt. I'm so sorry. It's the television and timings, and it is a subject, of course, that we could spend a lot of time talking about and delving into, but we just haven't got it this morning. I'm so sorry. But it's an important one. I'm glad we've touched upon it. Michael Conroy, founder and director of Men at Work. Charlotte Carson, teacher and founder of Feminism in Schools. Thank you very much.
Time now, 7:31. That means it's time to get the news, the travel and the weather where you are.